Happy Sunday afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Non-Boss Audits and Investigations. And I'm so happy you all are here. We've got I gotta say hi to everybody. We have Mr. Gary Spikes, and we have Jane from T Rose Sounds, and we have, oh, my mouse is messing up here. It's messing up. And we have Garrel from Midwest Night Watchers. And we have Mr. Griff in the house. And we have, Crystal J. How are you, my love? So glad to see you here. And I think that's everybody for right now. I started a couple of minutes early. I just wanted to give you guys a quick update from yesterday's video. First, let me just say that I'm so glad that it's, we've gotten to a point where we're getting some like spotlight, right? We're getting some attention, some eyes on this subject matter. And yesterday, and I will just really quickly, I will show y'all. Hold on one second. One moment. Let me pull it up. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was doing it backwards again. I'm always doing it backwards. I don't know why. I always forget how, StreamYard works. I've only been doing this for 2 years. You would think I would know what I was doing by now. Unfortunately, apparently I don't. I'm getting there though. I'm getting there. So yesterday, right as the show was ending, the two protesters that were two of the three protesters that were falsely arrested. They were the ones that were assaulted, and they were the ones that were put in jail and charged, but they thought they were going to have to be there till probably like next Wednesday or something, and be there through the weekend. But two of the three of them have been released. There is Cam, LA_Cam. His link is in the description. Here is Danny, and his link is also in the description. And I think it's at Danny_live. And they both are out and free men once again. And, after they got out, literally, they left the detention center and went directly back over to that restaurant where they did a local NBC affiliate actually did an interview with them. I will say, having said that, the interview that they did with them was fabulous because Streets LA and a few of the other streamers were there to videotape their actual interview. And it was fantastic. It was fantastic. They cut it up though, and they took out any mention of Scientology. But if you want to see like the interview that they actually did, and it was fantastic, go and check out Streets LA. Scientology Audits, Streets LA. His link is in the description. Like I told you guys before, every single show on this channel, there's an entire list of people, and it's going to grow as I become more and more aware of other channels and other streamers. It's going to grow. But LA Cam and Danny, both of their links to their channels are in there. But go check out and see. But it's still, even though they kind of chopped it up and left out the whole reason for the protest, that it was a Scientology motivation was the foundation of it. It still got more eyes, more awareness. And that's what we're after. And that is going to only snowball. So the more the LAPD and Scientology continue to conspire with one another and it all being caught on film, it's just going to continue to do nothing but bring them a world of hurt. Okay. So having said all of that, Um, Real quick, I wanted to also let me see. Oh, I already mentioned all the channels in the in the description. Make sure you guys check I have them kind of like labeled by what type of channel they are. So you can kind of pick and choose, and some of them, I'm telling you, these guys are relentless. They are out there 7 days a week, in the rain, in the cold, doesn't matter. They're dedicated. They're going nowhere, Scientology. They're going nowhere, LAPD. Okay? Nowhere. Not until these mofos are shut down. So, the other thing I wanted to say is anybody who's brand new to my show, brand new to this channel, it's not a new thing for me. I have a main channel. This is another channel dedicated to this specific subject matter, to bring more awareness to the subject matter. But if you're brand new to this channel, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, so that I can continue to get more information out there. Um, Tonight, I think, or this afternoon, this is going to be an interesting thing because what we're going to do, I'm going to show you guys. I don't know if y'all remember, Crystal, you may not because you're youngin'. The rest of us, though, us oldies but goldies and goodies, Ted Koppel and Nightline. You want to talk about some badassery going on? I mean, that dude meant business. Never, ever seen him be at a loss for words or tripped up by someone he was interviewing. He was professional and he was just a badass. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So before we start this, because it is going to be the very beginning of it, I put the link to the full, I got this video. It's on a few channels, but this was kind of like a full unedited version, um, on growing up in Scientology, Aaron Smith Levin on his channel. And I think he posted it like a year ago or something. And it came up in my feed and I watched it, and I watched it like 3 times because I sat there like, wait a minute, did he just say that? It's an interesting interview. But I want to give you guys just a little background on Ted Koppel so you understand when I say to you that this man was fearless. There was never going to be ever anybody who was going to rattle his cage, okay? So I want to just give you guys a little bit of background on Mr. Ted Koppel. Ted Koppel is a British-born American broadcast journalist, best known as the anchor for Nightline from the program's inception in 1980 until 2005. Before Nightline, he spent 20 years as a broadcast journalist and a news anchor for ABC. After becoming host of Nightline, he was regarded as one of the outstanding, serious-minded interviewers on American television. 5 years after its 1980 debut, the show had a nightly audience of 7.5 million viewers. After leaving Nightline in 2005, Koppel worked as a managing editor for the Discovery Channel, a news analyst for NPR and BBC World News America, and a contributor to Rock Center with Brian Williams. And since 2016, Koppel has served as a special contributor to CBS News Sunday Morning. His career as a foreign and diplomatic correspondent earned him numerous awards, including 9 Overseas Club Awards and 25 Emmy Awards. So I wanted to give you guys a little history in case you don't know who Ted Koppel is. And if you've never seen Ted Koppel in action, this is going to be a treat because I'm telling you, I had to watch it several times because I missed his style. I missed his like I said, he just had this like swag, right? This like, he was spicy, but he didn't have to be spicy. It was like he had this confidence and air about him. And like I said, people don't rattle Ted Koppel. So I thought you guys would enjoy. We're going to see a few minutes before this particular interview that took place between Ted Koppel and David Miscavige. David Miscavige is the chairman of the board, head of the Church of Scientology, excuse me, the cult of Scientology. And he's the guy in charge. And this is his very first and only interview he has ever given. And it was this one from 1992 where Ted Koppel sat down with him and they had this interview. Prior to the interview, Forrest Sawyer, and if you don't know who he is, you might want to Google him because he was rock star too back in the day. And he did this like expose. It is at the beginning of this video. I'm going to just play just a little bit of it here and there. I'm not going to play that whole section because I really want to dive deeper into the way that this interview that took place between Ted Koppel and David Miscavige, kind of this interaction that they have with one another. Now, one more thing that we're going to talk about prior to us listening to this interview and how it goes. Last week sometime I had on my community tab posted a channel, Oh No Nora, where Nora talks about what it is, what the term dead agent is. Okay. And she actually explains what it is. She actually reads it. I actually from there, and her channel is also linked down in the description. Oh No Nora. She is on her community tab. She posted the actual order regarding how to be and how to handle and do like this dead agent packet, this strategy against enemies. And she posted the original order from L. Ron Hubbard. So we're gonna kind of go through that really fast, and then we're just gonna get to the meat and potatoes. Okay, so let me pull that up one moment. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm going to put it on the screen. Okay, hold on, guys. Hold on one second. Let me just, because I won't be able to see the chat as I'm reading it. Okay. Okay. So, and it was kind of cut up in two pieces. Now, this is from the Office of Special Affairs. Okay. Remember, the Office of Special Affairs is basically the branch of the cult of Scientologies. They are the henchmen. They are the people who are out there, making sure you're not causing trouble for Scientology. Is it showing? Oh, it is showing. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't realize. I wasn't sure. So this is from the Office of Special Affairs, Network Order number 96. Okay. I got to make it a little bigger so I can actually read this thing. Hold on one second. Hold on. There we go. Okay. I hope it's bigger for y'all too. Okay. Dead agent documentation. Okay. You must do a positive / negative type of refutation. This sort of thing is very hard to study for a casual guy who is more or less illiterate anyhow, like a government official. And unless you have signposts, it does not communicate as well as it might. It is not a discussive refutation, but you say this, here's that. And you say this, here's that. You say this, here's that. You say this, here's that. That sort of approach. But it is much more positive. I'm sorry. That's that sort of approach, but it is much more positive. It is a statement and a refutation with the evidence that the statement is false. It is very orderly. You can also do this with color. The allegation is red and the refutation is white, or the allegation is white and the refutation is blue. The file says the allegation, and then the refutation is crisp. The negative statement followed by the positive refutation is a more impactful pattern or impactive pattern followed at the back with a complete proof to the contrary. At the front or the back, there is an index, so there is a list of these allegations with complete proof to the contrary. It goes on and says, I would propagandize it even further by just calling it, in quotation marks, falsehood. False. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to make it a little bigger for myself. I'm sorry. My eyes are getting old. Falsehood number so and so. Complete proof of complete proof to the contrary. Number so and so. 1, 2, 1, 2 with the numbers of the documents. They glance over this and just idly look through and they see bong exclamation point. That's true. And bong, that's DA'd. And what he means by dead agent, that's being dead agented. A submission of a court suit should be made up that way. A judge has no time to read. He maunders around. He has misunderstood words. So he just reads, quote unquote, falsehood, refutation in quotations. Well, what the hell? A falsehood here? Where is it? Here. They said that. They said that the something or other and they were on drugs. Here's the refutation. Helped the state of California unearth ... The documents of their false reports, you would label an quote unquote incompetent report and provide quote unquote complete proof to the contrary. Somebody looking through that would say, where there's smoke, there's fire. There is another thing you do. Make sure you don't give them more information than they already have. So you have to figure out what will make a point with them. Basically, it is a propaganda action or a PR action. Leave no question in anyone's mind. L. Ron Hubbard, founder. So that, oh, sorry, I got to take that out. That is how L. Ron Hubbard has instructed anybody in Scientology. It's called being it's a dead agent, right? Now, having all of that kind of this framework, I want you to kind of think of all of that in his way of how you're supposed to handle these kinds of people and these kinds of situations. Keep it in the back of your mind as you listen to this exchange that takes place between Ted Koppel and David Miscavige. The questions that Ted Koppel asks him and the sometimes very bizarre answers that Miscavige gives him. Okay. So it's a very strange. Hi, Jean. I'm sorry I didn't see you popped in. Did anybody else pop in? Brian. Hi, Brian. Thanks for being here, guys. So have in the back of your mind everything I just read to you, this dead agent concept that L. Ron Hubbard makes everybody follow. All right. And they still to this very day, because there's this thing in Scientology where you have to follow literally, specifically, word for word, every single thing that L. Ron Hubbard ever said. That's like this thing. If he wrote it down, then it's basically like this is that you don't deviate. You don't add to it. You don't take away from it. You follow it word for word. All right. So let me take this, stop sharing that screen, and then I'm gonna share this video. And hopefully we won't have the internet issue that we had yesterday. Hang on, let me make sure we are. Hold on 1 second. All right, you guys are seeing it. All right, just wanted to make for sure.
You've heard about Dianetics, the #1 self-help bestseller by L. Ron Hubbard.
Can you guys hear it okay?
You've seen the commercials.
Are you using your mind to the fullest?
Touting the benefits of the Church of Scientology.
Clear away your negative feelings.
Give me a thumbs up so I know you guys are hearing the video.
Dianetics? It's amazing.
Stars such as John Travolta and Tom Cruise say that Scientology has changed their lives. But critics charge fraud, that the Church of Scientology is nothing but a scam to take millions from unsuspecting believers. Tonight, we'll take you inside the Church of Scientology as we bring you the first ever interview with David Miscavige, the head of the church.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Some of you may recall that last May, Time magazine did a cover story on the Church of Scientology. To say that the leaders of that church did not like the story would be a case of wretched understatement. As you will hear in a moment from my colleague Forrest Sawyer, the Scientologists launched a multi-million-dollar campaign to counter the impact of that Time story. It was during that general period and in that context that we got in touch with the man who now runs the church, David Miscavige, to discuss his appearance on Nightline. The process has taken 9 months. Mr. Miscavige tells us that he has never done an interview before. And I think it's also fair to say that he and the men and women who run the Scientology organization are somewhat leery of the media. The Church of Scientology, for reasons that we will also be presenting, does not generally get a very favorable press. David Miscavige is described in one article as ruthless with a volatile temper, in another as being so paranoid that he keeps plastic wrap over his glass of water. I was pleasantly surprised then when Mr. Miscavige first came to my office a few months back. He came alone, without any staff, and we had an amiable, if intense, conversation. I believe he even accepted a cup of coffee without plastic wrap. We'll let you make up your own mind about David Miscavige. We do have some things to tell you, however, about the Church of Scientology. Here is the first of 2 reports from Nightline correspondent Forrest Sawyer.
Okay, so I'm going to skip forward because what basically they show you, and it's a good like almost 10 minutes, 15 minutes long. And it's the story that Forrest Sawyer put together about the churches. I'm sorry, I always want to say it's the cult of Scientology. So I'm going to fast forward to where Nightline airs again the story that Forrest Sawyer put together about the Church of Scientology. Okay. And again, the link to this full video is in the description, and it's on Growing Up on Scientology's channel. You can go and check out the full thing, the part that I'm kind of skipping. And we're just going to head on over to, we're going to move it and go to the actual interview with David Miscavige. So hold on. Hold, please. Hold, please. Here we go. All right.
Joining us live tonight is David Miscavige, whose formal title is Chairman of the Board of the Religious Technology Center, the organization which manages Dianetics and Scientology. Mr. Miscavige took over as the head of Scientology in 1987, following the death of the church's founder, L. Ron Hubbard. You've been sitting here very patiently for the first 15 minutes. It's your turn. We're going to take a short segment here to talk, and then we'll take a break, and then we've got the rest of the program to talk. Where would you like to pick up on what many in our audience, I suspect, have seen for the first time about the Church of Scientology?
Yeah, well, I think, I guess the first thing I would like to take up is the fact of the intro piece. There's no question that there's some controversy surrounding Scientology, but if you want to look at what the real controversy is, there's been stories like this one that we saw here for the past 40 years, and yet during that time period, Scientology has continued to grow. In fact, it's 25 times larger today than it was in 1980. I would just like to take up a few of the falsehoods that are in there, because I think this explains a lot why you have the controversy. I don't know that Scientology lends itself so well to the press. In this instance,
Do you guys see? He's already beginning to dead age it. Okay. Just like it said, somebody's going to say this, but then you're going to turn around and say that. All right. So keep that in mind.
we did agree that we would have your correspondence come in. And in fact, he did have unlimited access to the church. But then you get a piece like this. For instance, something that isn't mentioned in there is that every single detractor on there is part of a religious hate group called Cult Awareness Network and their sister group called American Family Foundation. Now, I don't know if you've heard of these people, but it's the same as the KKK would be with the blacks. I think if you interviewed a neo-Nazi and asked them to talk about the Jews, you would get a similar result to what you have here. The thing I find disingenuous is that it's not commented upon, and yet, in fact, your correspondent Forrest and Deanna Lee were aware of this fact. And not only that, that is the source of where they receive these people to talk to. They didn't find them randomly.
If I may just interrupt for a moment, you realize there's a little bit of a problem.
Here comes the badassery of Ted Koppel.
In getting people to talk critically about the Church of Scientology, because quite frankly, they're scared.
Oh, no.
Well,
Let me explain something to you. The most disingenuous thing is that you have those people. Now, let's not give the American public the wrong impression that these are people that randomly were pulled in from around the world and that they decide to talk against Scientology. Those people aren't scared, and they've been loudly speaking in the press. You showed me a book you had before this show that has many detractors. Same ones. So they're not really frightened. That's a good story.
Actually, that was the book. It was a collection of articles that has been written about you.
But the same people are quoted.
No, what I was saying is the reason perhaps that we only hear from those folks is that there are a lot of other people who might be considered detractors of the church, and they, who do not belong to any organization, are quite frankly afraid to come out and speak.
Well, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. That story doesn't hold water, because I'll tell you, from my perspective, the person getting harassed is myself and the church. Let me give you an example. We did make access possible for Forrest. That isn't to say that he took advantage of it, Ted. For instance, the subject of money comes up. It comes up routinely, and I'm sure we might bring it up later on this show. But I, in fact, had the highest contributors of Scientology gathered up so that Forrest could interview them to ask them why they gave money to the church and how much they had. And believe me, it's larger figures than these people are talking about. He told me he didn't have time. I said, please, I mean, they're here. He said, no, I don't have time. I don't want to see them.
I find that so hard to believe.
I offered for him to go down to our church headquarters in Clearwater, Florida, where 2,000 parishioners are there at any given time from all over the world. In other words, he would get a cross-selection, people from Germany, England.
I don't think when he says 2,000 parishioners, because that leads you to believe that it would be, say, 2,000, maybe, I don't know if you want to think about it in like church sense, 2,000 people around the clock. There's 2,000 people at any given time, when he really means there's 2,000 people that are, you know, just working their fingers to the bone for anywhere from 30, probably back then it was a lot less. It was probably $20 or $30 a week.
California, Florida, Spain, Italy, you name it. Didn't want to go, didn't have time. So to represent also that this is what the church puts forth isn't so, here's what I find wrong, and here's what I find the common mistake the media makes. I can get you 100,000 Scientologists who will say unbelievably positive things about their church to every one you had on there. And I not only am upset about those people not being interviewed, they are too. And the funny thing about it, and why you find us not really being that willing to speak to the media, is because not just myself, any Scientologist will open up a paper, will watch this program. They're probably laughing right now, saying that isn't Scientology. That's what makes media. Media is controversy. I understand that. And if you really looked at the big picture of what's happening in Scientology, it isn't really controversial, certainly to a Scientologist.
We're going to have to take a break.
Very good.
I hope you understand that there's a little bit of a paradox in your saying, you know, we're not going to get a chance to listen to what Scientology is really about. We have with us, after all, since you were...
Oh, absolutely. I'm just trying to correct this.
I understand. We're going to be spending the rest of this hour in which I'll have a chance to talk to you, and you can clear up some of the misconceptions we have.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Okay.
We'll continue our discussion in a moment.
Okay, guys. It's gonna start getting a little spicy now. But you saw how he just kind of came out going, y'all don't know what you're talking about. Absolutely following the playbook. All right, here we go.
We return now to a conversation with David Miscavige. Once again, Ted Koppel.
I'd like to begin, Mr. Miscavige, with, I guess, the kind of broad question that perhaps folks at home may be asking themselves right now, but let me be the guinea pig for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
See if you can explain to me why I would want to be a Scientologist.
Because you care about yourself and life itself. Scientology, the word means study of life, study of knowledge. And that's what it is. It takes up all areas of life itself. Things that are integral and maxims that are related to life and very existence. Let me give you an example. It's better if I take that because it is such a broad-ranging subject covering so many different areas. The subject of communication. This is something that major breakthroughs exist in Scientology. Being able to communicate around in the world around you. And I think everybody would agree that this is an important subject. Well, there's an actual formula for communication, which can be understood. You can drill on this formula of communication and learn to drill. But moreover, take the person who has trouble communicating, well, for some reason he can't, anxiety, whatever.
I'll tell you what, let's stick with me, okay? So far in life, I haven't had a whole lot of trouble communicating. Now, see if you can communicate to me what it is that you're going to be able to do for me that makes me a better communicator.
Well, in Scientology, you don't do anything for somebody else. Scientology is something that requires somebody's active participation.
Then, fine.
Certainly, let me explain something.
I want to participate. I want to be active.
Okay, what in your life, Ted, what in your life do you not feel is right that you would like handled?
I feel perfectly comfortable with my life. I like my job. I'm happy with my family. I love my wife. I'm healthy. I'm perfectly content. That's why I'm asking you, what is it you can do for me?
Well, number one, I would never try to talk you into that Scientology is for you. You see, that's a funny thing about this, is if I'm now going to give a sales pitch to you on Scientology. Believe me, Scientology is valuable enough that it doesn't require any sales pitch. But let's look at it this way then, what Scientology does. If you look out across the world today, you could say that if you take a person who's healthy, doing well, like yourself, you'd say that that person is normal, not a crazy, not somebody who's a psychotic. You look at a wall and they call it an elephant. Would you agree with me on that?
So far, I got no problem.
And you can see people.
Okay, guys, I don't know if y'all noticed. Wasn't that a sales pitch? Isn't that how sales pitches start out? They tell you something, tell you something, tell you something. Wouldn't you agree with that? Wouldn't you agree that the sky is green? Wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't you agree? Here we are, sales pitch. Even though he says, oh, no, that wasn't, this is, no sales pitch here. Yeah, here we go.
People below that.
Right.
And
I'm going to back up just
crazy
a little
people. Well, for some reason he can't, anxiety, whatever.
I'll tell you what, let's stick with me, okay? So far in life, I haven't had a whole lot of trouble communicating. Now, see if you can communicate to me what it is that you're going to be able to do for me that makes me a better communicator.
Well, in Scientology, you don't do anything for somebody else. Scientology is something that requires somebody's active participation.
Then, fine.
And certainly, let me explain something.
I want to participate. I want to be active.
Okay,
Clearly,
what in your life, Ted, what in your life do you not feel is right that you would like handled?
I feel perfectly comfortable with my life. I like my job. I'm happy with my family. I love my wife. I'm healthy. I'm perfectly content. That's why I'm asking you, what is it you can do for me?
Well, number one, I would never try to talk you into that Scientology is for you. You see, that's a funny thing about this, is if I'm now going to give a sales pitch to you on Scientology, believe me, Scientology is valuable enough that it doesn't require any sales pitch. But let's look at it this way then, what Scientology does. If you look out across the world today, you could say that if you take a person who's healthy, doing well, like yourself, you'd say that that person is normal, not a crazy, not somebody who's a psychotic. You look at a wall and they call it an elephant. Would you agree with me on that?
So far, I got no
Okay, and you can see people below that.
Right.
And crazy people, criminals, that I think society in general will look at and say that breed of person hasn't something quite right because they're not up to this level of personality. You can understand that. Well, we in Scientology are not, you see, all past attempts have been to bring man up to somebody's standard of what's normal. What we're trying to do in Scientology is take somebody from this higher level and move them up to greater ability. You see, we're interested in
What about those folks down there?
Well, yes, no, we don't ignore them. But my point is this: Scientology is there to help the able become more able. The guy who's going around, he's working, he's trying to make it. These people generally have something in their life that they would like to improve. And in any event, if you can increase that person's ability, the one who's chipping in, the one who's able, and bring him up higher, the sphere of influence that he affects in the world around him can be much greater, and he can get on and do better.
Now,
Yeah. So he's only worried about the people they're more focused on the people who have jobs and have lots of money, not the people who really need the help, the homeless, the people who need the help. Sorry about them. We want to, we want to help those people who can pay for courses, pay for classes, pay for all kinds of videotapes and craziness. Yeah. That's what that's the sales pitch, folks. That's the sales pitch.
Mr. Miscavige, when you and I talked the first time a few months ago, I said to you I was going to come after you on some of these issues. I am a cynic by nature. I guess that's why I like being a reporter. What you have described to me there fits perfectly with the image that I have of Scientology. Namely, you're interested in folks who are producing. Another way of saying that is you're interested in folks who've got money and who can pay to work their way up the Scientology ladder.
That's where you missed the point, because in fact, this subject of money comes up, but you've got the wrong issue there. The subject of money is, where's it going? You see, another part that isn't in that piece, the money in Scientology isn't going to me. It's not going to my colleagues. That's a fact. That's a fact. You can call up the IRS and find that fact out. They've audited our records and seen all of that, and none of that money is going anywhere. As a matter of fact, the officials in the church are paid far less and live far more frugal existences than any other church leader. Our money goes to social causes that we accept. You take these people, we are the largest social reform group in the world, do far more than any other church. For the last 2 years, we've been voted the Community Outreach Group of the Year in Los Angeles.
By whom?
By the local city council. The Senate of California passed a resolution that's for our work with underprivileged children in California. We work on getting drug addicts off drugs. We support Narconon, which is drug rehabilitation center, using the drug.
Just so that you guys know, Narconon is another front group that Scientology uses, and they try to kind of make it like it's a little bit of an kind of like an AA thing, but really it's not. Yeah. Again, the money stays inside Scientology. It is not out there helping the masses who really need it.
Rehabilitation technology of L. Ron Hubbard. There are 33 centers around the world. Over 100,000 people have been gotten off drugs. We sponsor educational programs. Several years ago, in just one instance, we worked with.
One more thing I want to make, another comment that I want to make, in all honesty. And I, let me, hold on. Let me switch screens here. Let me just switch screens. 1 second. Just so that you guys know, I have a lot of experience with addicts in my life. Okay. The one thing I can tell you about anyone who wants to get clean, if the commitment is there to get clean, I don't care what program you do, you're going to get clean. Just saying, just saying, just saying. We'll go back. Sorry.
To minimize any
We
of that,
work- we-
but how does that make your group how did you put it, that you do more to help
Social reform. helping
social
people.
reform
Sure.
than any other group in the world?
I-
More than the Catholic Church?
Well, no, more accurately is per size. And when you put it in that rate, in other words, how big Scientology is compared to any others, the amount that we do on that subject, there's not even anybody comparable.
Okay, we've got to take a break. We'll continue our discussion with David Miscavige in a moment. During one of Forrest Sawyer's pieces a moment ago, we heard one of your colleagues talking about psychiatry, right?
Right.
You guys are death on psychiatry. The criticism that was made was that this is foreign to the United States. You referred to its origins in Nazism and communism, and that your religion, Scientology, is an American religion. Fair enough?
Well,
Just want to really quickly give a little bit of backstory regarding the L. Ron Hubbard's stance on psychiatry. When he first came up with the whole, concept of Scientology and science of the mind and Dianetics and reactive mind and all these kinds of things, he really, back in those days, he was trying to get that whole, like the psychiatric community to just embrace him and his ideas. But they saw that they were not going to work. Do you know what I mean? Like, they kind of saw through him and they kind of snubbed him and was like, you're a science fiction writer, dude. That's pretty much what you are. This isn't, it's not going to help people. Not going to actually help people. So he had it out for the psychiatric community. And he really, really ingrained everybody and anybody in Scientology that you never, ever, ever use medications. You don't use medications and you don't go to psychiatrists ever, ever. It is totally, completely against the cult of Scientology's beliefs. Okay, here we go.
American of the mind. Yeah,
Right.
That's right.
What does that do for Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, all the other isms that also did not originate in this country?
Well, no, that isn't really the point. The point there is this, that those people, the fascists, the communists, have used psychiatry to further their ends. That's just a fact. I mean, you want to look at the studies that brought about the Holocaust of the Jews, that the Nazis justified killing the Jews. They were done at the Max Planck Institute of Psychiatry in Leipzig, Germany, and that justified the killing of 6 million people. If you look at the report that even Forrest Sawyer did on the mental institutions in Russia, several months ago he did this, you saw that that was a tool of the state. That's the point he's making there. But let me tell you what our real problem is. Number one, understand this. Psychiatry, psychology, that comes from the word psyche. Psyche means soul. These people have preempted the field of religion, not just Scientology, every other religion. They right now practice and preach the fact that man is an animal. And I guess that is where, philosophically, we're at odds with them. But to understand what this war is, this is not something that we started. In fact, 22 days after Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health came out, the attacks from the American Psychiatric Association started. This was the first popular book on the mind ever in existence. It was.
Of course, it couldn't have possibly been the reason that they were kind of saying, hey, L. Ron Hubbard guy, you don't know what the F you're talking about, and none of it makes any sense. And we're seeing a million red flags. I mean, that couldn't possibly have ever been the real reason as to why the American Psychiatric Association was like, this doesn't make sense, sir. All right, let's hear what David Miscavige has to say.
was running up the bestseller list. It was popular with the people. I have the letter sent out by the man who was in the American Psychiatric Association asking for ad hominem reviews on the subject of Dianetics. These people absolutely felt that we were cutting across their vested interests. And the lengths with which they have gone to destroy Scientology and Dianetics and L. Ron Hubbard is absolutely mind-boggling. They attempted to do so through the 1950s. First, they tried to attack L. Ron Hubbard's credibility. Then they recruited the American Medical Association and the Food and Drug Administration, and they then proceeded to infiltrate our organization. Let me finish.
Okay, now, like, do you guys see the paranoia? Can you guys just see the paranoia? And we're only just a little into this interview, an exchange between Ted Koppel and David Miscavige. But can you guys see some of the paranoia that L. Ron Hubbard had when it came to the association, the Psychiatric Association? Now it's the FDA, Big Pharma. I mean, like, everybody. It's like there's an enemy behind and around every corner. Every corner.
And I'll stop you just for a moment because, when you talk about undermining L. Ron Hubbard's credibility, and again, I have no idea whether that video and the tape that we
Why don't we touch on
that we heard was representative of L. Ron Hubbard. But when I hear about a man talking about having been taken out to the Van Allen space radiation belt of spaceships that were essentially the same thing as the DC-8. I got to tell you, I mean, if we're talking about this man's credibility, that certainly raises some questions in my mind about his credibility.
Okay, well, let me ask you: have you read any books on Dianetics or Scientology?
I've been reading little else over the last few days. I must confess, I'm not a student.
But you haven't read Dianetics or any books on Scientology.
You're absolutely
okay.
Right.
Fine, then that's why you would make a comment like that. I mean, let's not joke around here. That bit that Forrest did there pulled out of context items. And let's not forget something else, by the way. I told Forrest Sawyer, and I was open about this the whole time. I have been in communication with Nightline numerous times. I said, Forrest, something comes up, you want to bring me up an allegation, you confront me with it before this so I can do away with this garbage and not have to do it on the program.
See, again, here he goes. He's going to dead agent Ted Koppel. Well, he thinks he is.
Dave, I promise you I'll do it. Numerous calls have been put into him. I have never heard it from him. I never heard about these. To do that, it's take anything out of context. Ted, let me just give you an analogy. Let me give you an analogy.
You know that there are going to be a lot of folks out there, and I'm sure there are a lot of Scientologists, and I don't want to offend anyone who truly believes this, but there are a lot of people out there who look at that. You say it was taken out of context. Take a minute, if you would, and see if you can put it into context for us so that it does not sound ridiculous. Because quite frankly, the way it sounded there, it sounded ridiculous.
Okay, well,
I told you, Ted Koppel, badass.
Let me ask you to do this then. I want you to take the Catholic Church and take right now and explain to me, to make sense, that the Virgin Mary was a virgin. Scientifically impossible, unless we're talking about something. Okay, I'll be like you, I'll be the cynic. If we're talking about artificial insemination, how could that be? You're talking about going out to heaven, except we have the space shuttle going out there. We have the Apollo going out there. You do that. I'm not here to wait. I'm not here to talk. I'm not here to talk.
Let me do it. And you were a Catholic as a child, right?
Yeah.
So you know full well that those issues are questions of faith. Are you telling me that what we have heard L. Ron Hubbard say on this broadcast this evening, that they, to Scientologists, are issues of faith? If that's what you tell me, then that's fine.
No, as a matter of fact,
it doesn't have to be explained
what I'm
logically.
telling you, you talk about the Van Allen belt or whatever, is that forms no part of current Scientology.
But
None whatsoever.
What did he mean when he was talking about it?
Well, quite frankly, this tape here, he's talking about the origins of the universe, and I think you're going to find that in any religion. And I think you can make the same mockery of it. I think it's offensive that you're doing it here because I don't think
I'm
you're
not
doing
mocking
else.
it. I'm asking you a question. And if you turn it around and ask me about Catholicism, I say we're talking about.
Well, it's not even a matter of faith because Scientology is about you, yourself, and what you do. You're bringing up something that isn't part of current Scientology, that isn't something that Scientologists study, that is part of some tape taken from I have no idea, and asking me about it and asking me to put it in context.
Was that exchange unreal? I mean, it's like this is why I was saying before we started watching this exchange in this interview between Ted Koppel and Miscavige. Like I said, back in the day, Ted Koppel was the man. I'm telling you. But you see how he is unrattled. He's not letting David Miscavige get under his skin. And oh boy, can you guys tell how hard David Miscavige is trying to get Ted Koppel off center, just like it would dead agenting him. He's trying so hard to get him off balance, and it doesn't work. Not with Ted Koppel. Ted Koppel was professional, calm, very like, hey man, I get it. I get it. And he was the one who was actually doing the real communicating. And right about now is where, in my opinion, is where David Miscavige starts to realize he's not the guy in charge in this moment. So watch what he does next. This is interesting.
That I can't
so
do.
This has nothing to do with your faith
If
today.
you read any books on science, no. Val and Alan Bell, absolutely not. Nothing.
Okay,
He
we're
lied.
going to continue our discussion in just a moment. And we're back once again with David Miscavige. I'm going to let you get to the point you want to get to, but I was astonished during the break you told me you had never heard that tape before.
No, I've never heard that tape.
L. Ron Hubbard tape.
No, I'm not. I mean, it may exist there, but I haven't heard it. I mean, I don't know if you understand. There are 6,000 lectures by Mr. Hubbard.
And when you are a Scientologist, especially who this person is, chairman of the board, head of the cult of Scientology, and you've been in it your entire life, trust me, you know exactly and have heard every single lecture. You've read every single book. You've read every one of his little orders. You were in the Sea Org. You grew up in this. Trust me, it is their job to know word for word every single thing that Hubbard ever wrote, ever discussed, ever talked about, ever put in a movie, a book, any. Yes. So he's lying when he says, oh, I have no idea. I've never heard that before.
There are over 20 million words of printed words in Scientology. And all of these have been made available in Scientology. So if it is there, well, fine. Then I don't think anything's being hidden either. I just personally haven't heard that tape. Okay. No.
Now, you wanted to get back to the issue of the psychiatrist.
Yes.
And let me, if I may, by way of introduction to that, I did not interrupt you before, but you were talking about the use of psychiatry in Nazi Germany, the use of psychiatry in the Soviet Union.
Yes.
I would argue, and I think most psychiatrists in this country would argue, that what we're talking about here was the misuse of psychiatry in both those countries.
Well, okay. And if we're talking about the misuse, fine. In any event, I think any use that ends up killing people is a misuse, and I think that's a hell of a record to have. But let me get back to where it was, because it does tie in.
Then people, whatever you do, don't go out and drive cars, because people misuse vehicles every day. So don't go out and drive your cars. Just saying.
Say the misuse, but I don't know if you're aware that there was a plan in 1955 in this country, Ted, to repeat what was done in Russia. There was going to be a Siberia, USA set up on 1 million acres in Alaska to send mental patients. They were going to lessen the commitment laws. You could basically get into an argument with somebody and be sent up there. This sounds very odd. Nobody's ever heard about it. That's in no small part thanks to the Church of Scientology.
Okay. We gonna stop right there. Okay. I had never heard of this thing before. He mentions, and he calls it Siberia, USA. I had never heard of this before. Absolutely. I Googled it. I'm just going to give you guys, it's a quick read. But I did Google it. What he's doing in this interview is, again, he's doing the dead agent thing, and he's trying to Ted Koppel's asking him specific questions. He doesn't want to answer the questions, so he lies, and then he's trying to switch and flip the script, and he's trying to get Ted Koppel off of this subject onto something completely different, something outrageous, to kind of get people worked up about and make it look like it's truth and it's real when it's not. Okay. I'm going to just really quick. I Googled, and you guys can too, fact check me. I just Googled Siberia, USA. And the very first thing that came up on Wikipedia, it says Alaska Mental Health Enabling Act. The Alaska Mental Health Enabling Act of 1956 was an act of Congress passed to improve mental health care in the United States territory of Alaska. It became the focus of a major political controversy after opponents nicknamed it the Siberia Bill and denounced it as being part of the communist plot to hospitalize and brainwash Americans. Campaigners asserted that it was part of an international Jewish, Roman Catholic, or psychiatric conspiracy intended to establish United Nations run concentration camps in the United States. Excuse me. The legislation in its original form was sponsored by the Democratic Party, but after it ran into opposition, it was rescued by the conservative Republican Senator Barry Goldwater. Under Goldwater's sponsorship, a version of the legislation without the commitment provisions that were the target of intense opposition from a variety of far-right, anti-communist, and fringe religious groups was passed by the United States Senate. The controversy still plays a prominent role in the Church of Scientology's accounts of its campaign against psychiatry. The act succeeded in its initial aim of establishing, and this was what it was really for, to establish a mental health care system for Alaska, funded by income from lands allocated to a mental health trust. However, during the 1970s and early 1980s, Alaskan politicians systematically stripped the trust of its lands, transferring the most valuable land to private individuals and state agencies. The asset stripping was eventually ruled to be illegal following several years of litigation, and a reconstituted mental health trust was established in the mid-1980s. So what happened, how it started and why it started, was they were having an issue regarding people who needed mental health. They were having mental health crisis in Alaska. Anyone who was having any kind of who needed mental health, intervention of any kind or assistance or medications, they were having to go to Portland, Oregon. So what this bill really, really was for, they were going to take a huge territory section of Alaska, and any monies from that land, any sales and all of that, it would go into a trust in order and to build their own facility in Alaska for the people who lived in Alaska, who needed mental health care. Okay. That's what it was about. But David Miscavige is trying to, again, this has already, all of that transpired already before this interview, because this interview doesn't take place until 1992. All of this was already passed, done, changed, blah, blah, whatever. Let me go back, make sure I have the date right. Everything was back to normal, back to where it needed to be by the mid 1980s. So it had already been taken care of. There were no more issues with the situation. The bill was passed already long before this interview in 1992. Okay. So again, He's trying to just do nothing but dead agent Ted Koppel once again. Let's see if it works.
I must say, though, when that bill was killed in Congress, the war was on with psychiatry, where they declared war
It wasn't killed.
on us. And I want you to understand something.
Let me just ask you to be specific on that. You were talking about a bill having been brought into Congress for the setting aside of 1 million acres in Alaska.
You got it.
For people,
Send mental health patients.
mental health patients. Who was the sponsor of that bill? What was the bill number? I mean, I'm sure we're going to.
Well, I have a copy of it, and if you want it, I can give it to you. All of these documents.
But he didn't have it. He doesn't know it, does he? He brought it up, but he doesn't have all the facts.
All of these documents were made available to Forrest. If they're not on here, I don't know why, but I do have them.
I love it. Why would he have even given those documents to Forrest Sawyer? Why did he know that it was going to come up in the conversation?
And I will make it available to you.
Was that bill ever voted on?
I don't have it, but I'll let you
Yes,
later.
yes. So yes, it was a major flap for the psychiatrists when it got voted down, because then the slogan around the country began Siberia, USA, and it was really the first time that psychiatry had been denigrated publicly, that they weren't the science that they had been promoting themselves to be. And they took it upon themselves then to start dealing with anybody who would oppose them. They definitely saw Dianetics and Scientology as opposing them, not only in terms of their brutal treatments, such as electric shock and prefrontal lobotomy, which are specific things that we're against, but also for the fact of the people that were going to Dianetics and Scientology and not there. They went to the Food and Drug Administration. They went to the American Medical Association. They arranged an informant to go into our headquarters here in Washington, D.C., and infiltrate the organization over the next 5 years. I have documents on this too. They wanted to get somebody in the church to recommend medical treatment. Couldn't get them to do it. Walk in, say, I want to be cured medically. People wouldn't do it. They finally went so far as getting the head of the D.C. the moral department of the D.C. police to send his daughter in as an informant, pregnant, to get an abortion, to ask the church to do it. A frame job. The church didn't go for it. They did then raid the church.
When you say they, you're talking about who now?
I am talking, this is the APA, AMA, Food and Drug Administration. These people were all coordinated doing these activities, and it went on for 5 years, Ted.
Not for nothing, guys, but the paranoia is getting deep, man. He's going to need a pair of galoshes.
You have to understand, we only find this out recently. They then proceed to raid our church. Now, the following takes place. They killed one of our executive directors. They literally murdered. The Food and Drug Administration hired an informant to go into our organization in Seattle, Washington. His wife was there. He wasn't for Scientology. She was. They said, great, report on her and report on Scientology. He proceeded to do so. Several weeks later, murdered the head of our organization. Food and Drug Administration never told us that it was their informant. Instead, they got with the Seattle police and went undercover in the organization on the homicide investigation to rifle our files. At that same time, and here's where the media comes in, a man interviewed L. Ron Hubbard for the Saturday Evening Post, came out with an unbelievably bad article in that magazine. Of course, Scientology said, you're part of this Food and Drug Administration thing. And of course, he said, oh, excuse me, you just sound like the fringe, which is very easy to say. What do I find out 20 years later through the Freedom of Information Act? I find out that this man, a man named James Phelan, the Saturday Evening Post had been written to by the Food and Drug Administration to get a discrediting article written on Mr. Hubbard and Scientology to help their case against us. That this man then went and interviewed Mr. Hubbard. He interviewed him for 2 days. Mr. Hubbard provided him with tapes and transcripts. The man came back here to the United States. Mr. Hubbard was in England and provided those transcripts to the Food and Drug Administration for their case a full week before he ever wrote his article.
We have got to take another break. We'll continue our discussion in a moment.
Again, see how he dead agent everything? He just gave, Ted's trying to ask him these pretty simple freaking questions, and all he wants to do is give him a bunch of, it's like word salad, right? It's word salad. It's just like blah, 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 and this and that, and the FDA and the food and blah, and Big Pharma and Siberia, USA. And I don't have any proof of it, but it's true. Just trust me. Take my word on it. It's true. It's true.
Mr. Miscavige, I must admit, I'm curious. You have been the head of the Church of Scientology now for what, a little over 10 years?
Not really the head there, but certainly a senior Scientologist. Yes.
Okay. During all that time, you just told me again earlier this evening, you have not done any interviews.
No.
A, tell me why, and B, why now?
Why now? Okay, why not? Let me tell you something. I once added up all the press that had been written about me before the first reporter called trying to speak to me, and from around the world, it stacked up to 4.5 feet. By then, it was myth and legend. And then
It was taller than him.
only on 1 or 2 occasions can I think of that somebody has asked to speak to me, but never to interview me. It was always, I want to ask you about some allegations. And to that degree, I'm not interested. I gave you the story about this reporter. Quite frankly, from my view, a lot of the people who have written stories on Scientology are doing it from a certain pitch. They already have their story somewhat made up. They've already made up their mind. It's a waste of my time. I have to be honest. Why now? It's live.
Okay. It is live. As you know, initially, I mean,
And you asked.
Some more badassery coming out
and
here.
we have been talking to each other,
Sure,
and
absolutely.
negotiating now for about 9 months.
That really has never happened.
Initially, we wanted you to come on because you folks were really upset about that cover story that Time magazine did.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people have been upset by stories in the press about them. Certainly, a cover story has more impact than just any old story in a magazine, and Time is a big magazine. But one might argue that your response to it, your reaction to it, was huge. I think Forrest said you spent $3 million in USA Today alone with some of those full-page ads, double truck ads that you ran. Didn't you also run some TV ads and radio ads?
No, nothing on Time. And by the way, when you say the $3 million, there was an advertising campaign. You have to understand the first 3 weeks of it were about the Time magazine and correcting the falsehoods on it.
Right.
That was a campaign that ran for 12 weeks. The rest of it was attempting to inform the public of what Scientology was.
Now, I told you we've got to take a break in exactly 1 minute, so I may have to cut you short if you go longer on this. But why were you what was it about the Time magazine story that so upset you?
Because it wasn't reporting on anything. It was an attempt to cause something. Richard Behar is a hater. Behar. He had done an article on Scientology 3 years earlier in conjunction with the Internal Revenue Service. The man was on record on 2 occasions attempting to get Scientologists kidnapped. That is an illegal act. When you get somebody like that doing an article, you're not too interested.
All right. Let's leave that hanging in the air, and I promise we'll come back to it. I think both you and Mr. Behar deserve more on that subject. I'll be back in a moment. As you can see, our hour is up.
See how in control Ted Koppel is of the entire atmosphere in that room?
Some issues that have been left hanging that we're going to go a few minutes over our allotted time. You made the charge a moment ago that Mr. Behar of Time magazine, the reporter who wrote the cover story for Time, that he had, conspired with someone to try to get some Scientology kidnapped?
He had written an original article, and some people had called him up, and he was telling them to kidnap Scientologists.
He was telling them to kidnap Scientologists.
Yes, and get them forcibly deprogrammed, which, according to Ted Patrick, who is the father of deprogramming, it always includes kidnapping, usually assault and battery, and certainly with the intent to commit a felony.
Right. Now, kidnapping, as you well know, is a federal crime in this country.
Well, let me tell you something. There was one person who he used in that article that was at the behest of him that infiltrated our church in New Jersey. He didn't quote this in his article. I didn't find out until actually about a month ago. And the person has just been arrested. As a matter of fact, 4 people from this same group I mentioned at the beginning of the show have just been put under arrest last week for forcible kidnapping of persons from another faith. You have to understand something, Ted.
My apologies, guys. I did not have time to do any fact checking on that particular statement of his. I don't know if that is true or not, so I'm not gonna, it's alleged, I guess, because I did not fact check that. My apologies.
These people that he aligns with, this cult awareness network, which every one of these people are a part of.
Although I told you during a break that my producer told me in my earpiece right after it, I was going to leave it alone, that all of those people maintain they are not in that cult awareness group.
No, they don't, because I'll tell you right now, I spoke to Well, that's just not the case. But in any event,
Can we stay on Mr. Behar for a moment?
Absolutely.
Because you have made what is really a very serious charge, and that is that he was.
oh, he admits to it.
That he was involved in. I'm sure he does not involve.
No, he admits to wanting to get a Scientologist kidnapped.
Involved in kidnapping. That would be a very serious admission.
He absolutely admits to wanting to get a Scientologist kidnapped. It's in your Washington Post.
So why didn't you bring charges against him?
He didn't succeed. He didn't succeed. Our point is this, Ted.
As I said,
you're missing
before, there is such a thing.
Does David Miscavige, I'm sorry to keep stopping, but does David Miscavige appear to you to be the kind of person who, after everything you guys have been seeing that's going on out in LA with all of the protesters, does David Miscavige, chairman of the board, little Davy, little teeny weeny Davy, little itty bitty little Davy, does he really seem to be the kind of person that if somebody tried to kidnap somebody that he wouldn't press charges or call the police about it? Like, really? You stupid little dwarf, you. Ugh.
Is attempted rape, attempted murder, attempted kidnapping. It's also a crime.
But they didn't make it. They didn't make it. I mean, the point is this.
Doesn't matter. It's still a crime.
So just because they weren't successful, teeny weeny little Davy decided to not do anything about it because it wasn't successful. Duck Ted, you're right. You're so right, Griff. Oh my God, that's so true. I mean, for real, like that's your answer. Like, that's your answer. Little Davy, big narcissist syndrome. You got it, Chris. You got it. Little teeny Davy with the long Pinocchio nose because he's such a little liar. He's a little teeny weeny. He is very tiny, by the way. Y'all know how short and tiny Tom Cruise is. If you've seen these guys on stage, the two of them, he's even shorter than Tom Cruise. So when I call him teeny weeny little Davy and all of that, yeah, he's an itty bitty little guy. He's like Napoleon syndrome. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's, Okay, this is great.
Okay. The person would have to bring charges. I think you're really missing the issue, Ted, because my point is this. That man represents himself as an objective reporter. Here he is on record.
What point are we missing?
Before he wrote this article stating that he felt Scientology should be kidnapped to change their religion. Second of all, let's look.
I thought he was making the point that that this Behar guy like tried to kidnap somebody in Scientology and infiltrated and did this and did that and blah, 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 blah. And they did all these things, but what? Oh my word.
Look at this article and let's not fool ourselves. It wasn't an objective piece. It was done at the behest of Eli Lilly. They were upset because of the damage we had caused to their killer drug, Prozac. They set up that article. They used their advertising dollar to force it to run. And that's the fact.
All right. Now, if that is the fact, you're a careful man. I'm sure that you have evidence of that.
Well, here's what I do have of that. I do have a man here in Washington, D.C. named Duffy Wall, another one named Walter Moore. These are lobbyists for Eli Lilly. We have Burson Marsteller, the PR firm for Eli Lilly. The reason I'm saying this, you have to understand, this isn't my charge. I'm telling you what they say. After that article came out, they were around town here saying, we caused that article on Scientology on behalf of Eli Lilly.
You have affidavits?
Let me tell you what else I have.
You have affidavits?
From them, of course not. You think they admit it?
Well, I mean...
but they're the ones who said it.
You're saying they said it. Let me tell you what I do have.
My uncle, I got to say this because my uncle was a huge executive in Eli Lilly during this time frame when all of these things would have happened. He's passed on now. And OMG, I just wish he was still alive because I would love to go to him and get some feedback as to what really transpired. Because it's knowledge that I didn't know that I would need now a million years later. But holy cow, I just wish I had that. I wish I could do it. I wish it do. But yeah, here we go again. Now it's big pharma. So, right. So we started out with the FDA and the, the Psychiatry Association. I mean, is there anybody he hasn't mentioned yet that is, not an enemy of the cult of Scientology?
Let me tell you what I do have.
Go ahead.
I go one step further. I then later found out, and you didn't know this, that Eli Lilly ordered a reprint of 750,000 copies of Time magazine before it came out, reported in the Washington Post. But most importantly, here's what I do have. I put in a call to the people, the advertising firms who set this up. I called up JWT, J. Walter Thompson in New York. I spoke to the CEO. He said he would look into it and get back to me. He never did. I called up a man over in England who owns all these advertising and PR conglomerates for Eli Lilly, a man named Martin Sorrell. Ted, I asked him 10 times on the phone to deny that he had set this up on their behalf. He wouldn't do it.
All right.
We put in a call to Eli Lilly. Their response was, we can neither confirm nor deny. This is a pretty heavy allegation I'm making. I'm only making it because what I heard from their people, and they won't deny it. So for you to challenge me on it, you have to understand they're not challenging me on it. And furthermore, our story that came out in USA Today covers this entire matter. They haven't called in once to correct any fact in it.
When you say your story, you mean your advertisement?
Well, there was actually an insert in there that laid out
Your advertisement. It wasn't like there was an actual. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hold on. My apologies. I forgot I wasn't on screen. Let's get this straight. There wasn't an article. It was an advertisement. Okay. Advertisement. Big difference. Big difference. Big difference. But do you see the spin that he's trying to put on it? But you see the badassery that goes on when Ted Koppel calls him out and goes, hold up, dude. You mean your advertisement, right? Like the badassery of Ted Koppel. I love it. I love it. I love it. I can't get enough of Ted Koppel.
the entire way that came about.
Let us get back during the few minutes we have left in this broadcast to discussing Scientology a little. And I made a suggestion at the beginning of this program, or near the beginning of the program, that in order to progress within your church, it costs money, right? If I'm poor, how far can I progress?
Pretty far.
How far?
Well, I'll tell you this, by the time you start getting anywhere near the top, I guarantee you wouldn't be poor anymore, because generally people in Scientology do better if they honestly make it.
But let us assume there are some folks out there who are just poor. They don't have any money, they don't have any friends or relatives who have money. Is this the right religion for them?
Oh, absolutely. This is the right religion for anybody. In Scientology, you're dealing with yourself. You see, here, we have this.
Remember at the beginning of the interview, that's not what he said. It's not for everybody. It's not for the people who are mentally ill or people who don't have a lot of money. It's not for the people that are below normal, operating, contributing to society people. Remember, he said that. Remember, that's what he said. But now he's saying it's for everybody.
This in common with all religions of earth. All religions of earth try to help man to be better and to cause him spiritual improvement. Now, most in the Judeo-Christian society, they say if you
Opponents of those two religions would argue with you that they certainly set forth quite a number of rules and recommendations.
Oh, and now, I'm not disputing that. I am not trying to badmouth any other religion.
Right.
And Ted, I would never do that. All I'm saying is that they have their way. What's different in Scientology is how we approach it. There are higher levels of awareness as a spiritual being, and that's what we're dealing with in Scientology. Now, for me to talk to you about this and for you to have a reality on it, I don't think I'm going to get that, and I'll tell you why. You don't have a reality on it. You see, Scientology is a very personal thing. You ask why somebody would do it. I'm not making the claims for the church, Ted. Millions of Scientologists around the world are making that claim. You ask them, they are happier. They do feel they're more able. They do better in life. They know it has helped them. They say it. You can't take that away. And just like I wouldn't take that away from any other religion, when somebody then comes about and says that Scientology doesn't do that, are they telling me I don't have my own feelings?
No, I'm just asking you, and it strikes me as a reasonable question, but if you can't answer it, you can't answer it, that there must be a way of explaining without going into any of the innermost secrets of the Church of Scientology, and I understand your church has some secrets. There has to be a way of explaining what it is you do that's different.
What it is that we do, that's not very difficult at all. We approach it on a one-on-one basis. There is absolutely a technology of Scientology. There's a philosophy which covers the subject of life. I started talking about communication earlier on. Well, of course, it covers interpersonal relationships, a million subjects. I don't have enough time all night to go into them. But separately, there is a technology that's applied to you as an individual. Actual one-on-one counseling where you look. Well, number one, you have to understand the first premise. You are a spiritual being. You look, you find out more about yourself, who you are, where you have been. A man who can look back and do that is a very courageous individual. A lot of that includes looking back on your own past and areas where you went astray. That's similar to other religions.
It's also similar to psychiatry.
Listen, I'm not similar to psychiatry at all. I brought one piece of paper here because I knew this was going to come up. This is psychology, which covers the subject of religion. It's called Religiosity and Pre-Oedipal Fixation.
Let me stop you 1 second. I just want to tell any members of our audience who may just have joined us and not have been with us, my guest is David Miscavige. You are now the head of the Church of Scientology.
Yes.
Right. Okay, please.
This is what they say about religion. They say abstract. Religious.
Who is this again?
This is out of the Journal of Genetic Psychology. This is March 1985. And I want you to understand why I don't like being compared to these people, because I'm in a completely separate realm. Religious belief and observance derive from pre-Oedipal oral and anal drives according to psychoanalytic theory. Specifically, belief in deity and such concepts as the afterlife are consonant with oral needs for nurturance from an omnipotent benefactor, coupled with the denial of death. Observance of ritual, and particularly church attendance, is a function of the anal need for regular activity and the anal compulsive need for regularity and repetitiveness. This is an offense to any religion. I am not like these people. We deal with the spirit. They say man's a body. We separate right there. We're interested in bringing persons to a higher plane. They deal with the neurotics. They want to bring him up and tell him how to solve his problems. In Scientology, Ted, we want to bring the individual up to a higher level ability so that he's more intelligent. He has better reaction time. He's more able and intelligent so that he can handle his life better. Now you've handled something.
Explain to me, and again, going back to the pieces that we saw before, and by necessity, even though we ended up doing 15 minutes on these pieces, you end up compressing things.
Sure.
And I don't want to lead people astray. Talk to me for a moment about the e-meters. Those are those handles that you see people holding in the pictures, and they are dealing now with an auditor. An auditor is the person who, this is the one-to-one.
Well, here's what happens.
Yeah.
Could be me and you sitting across from each other. Maybe
okay, let's say I'm holding the e-meter. What are you doing, and what is that e-meter doing? What is it capable of doing?
Okay, what it is capable of doing is registering what's bothering you. It is a guide. It doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't yell out. Well, it's a meter there, and it sends a little electrical flow through your body. You're holding something there, very tiny. You cannot feel it. It shows a reaction. What does that reaction mean? That reaction just says there's a reaction. You thought something about it, or something that has some form of mental energy.
Reaction to what? You're saying words, and it's almost like
no,
free association. Or I mean, what am I reacting
Listen,
to?
stop comparing it to psychotherapy because it isn't.
I'm just asking.
And by the way, okay, there are a million things you could do, but you take up an individual subject of a person's life. I'll bring up the subject of communication. If that isn't you, fine. People do have problems with this subject. Very specific questions are asked. The person answers them. He looks, answers the question, answers it. To handle areas of upset that are upsetting him, he knows when they are no longer upsetting him. He finds out finally for himself why they were upsetting him, and they no longer do. That is what's happening.
What I'm still a little bit lost on is, presumably, you and I could do that.
Oh, absolutely.
Right now. Right.
Well, you'd have to want to participate.
Fine. But why do we need that piece of equipment?
Oh, because it's far more accurate. I mean, originally in Dianetics and Scientology, there was no meter, and you would look at a person.
What is the
and you would look at a person.
Now
I'll tell you.
Because I'm looking at a needle sweeping across.
Okay, you would look at the person. You would look at the person and hear something similar. I can see your face flush, or I can see you cry, or I can see you smile. You can observe people, right? Well, not many people have an ability to do that. And plus, that is pretty crude. What this does is when there is an area of upset, it registers. That's all it does. When the area of upset no longer exists, it doesn't register. That's all it does. It is strictly a guide.
And what is the
communication is taking place between you and I? You see, we're in there together. I'm asking something about you. You're interested in finding out something about yourself. I'm there to help you find that. But I'll tell you, here's where else we differ from psychotherapy, psychology. Those people would tell you, this is your problem. That's a pretty arrogant position to take for that person to tell you what's going on, considering every individual on this planet is different. Scientology, we show you a way to find out for yourself. And
Okay, guys, hold on. I'm going to go full screen here for 1 second. Go a little, make that small, make me a little big. This, what he's talking about is doing auditing, right? These auditing sessions that take place that are very expensive. This is one of the things that bothers me the most about the cult of Scientology, and I'll tell you why. Because this is where give me a minute, because it does affect me on a very deep level. Please always keep in mind when they talk to you guys or you guys hear things about auditors and being audited. Please always keep in mind that, remember, Scientology does not believe children are children. Scientology believes that there's always this constant reincarnating kind of thing that happens, right? And because they believe in this reincarnating kind of cycle that continues to happen, they believe that children are not children. They believe children are adults. What that translates to, this auditing that takes place, if you have the right amount of money and you happen to be a pedo, you can pay extra to get audited, private auditing sessions in hotels. There are some of the channels that are out there right now who are these children who were doing these, who were forced to do these types of sessions with known pedophiles. Not only were they known pedophiles, they were self-confessed pedophiles who were in rooms with young children, 9 years old, 10 years old. I'm not talking teenagers. I'm not even talking, 17. I'm talking, go check out Serge Delmar. Go check out his channel. I can't remember what, because they have different classifications of auditors. He was like the highest you could get at like 9 or 10. So this is where I lose my mind when it comes to what they do and how they deal with children, because they don't believe that children are children. When I think back to my children being 9 and 10 years old, and they're supposed to go into a room with someone who adults knew that they were, pedophiles, and that pedophile is sitting in that room talking about extremely inappropriate things that they have done to other kids to young kids. It's disgusting. So this is the kind of child trafficking type things that happen and the things that they do using children. But they don't tell you that. They'll just say, oh, these are Sea Org members. Go check out Serge Delmar. Go check out Laura FM. Laura FM talks about her billion-year contract. She signed it with crayon. She signed it in crayon. This is why these exposing of all of this disgusting, despicable, horrible filth and vile shit this cult does and are still doing to this day. And they have to be stopped. So let's move on. I'm sorry. I had to have a little sassy boss rant in the middle. My apologies. It enrages me when I think about these auditing sessions because they're, they don't tell you this. They don't explain this to you because these kinds of services are for the very, very rich, for the people who can spend tons and tons of money to sit down with a child in a hotel. If it was so above board, why aren't they using these buildings that they spend millions of dollars buying and renovating and all? Why aren't these things taking place at your church? David Miscavige, Church of Scientology, Cult of Scientology. Why are these things, were these things happening in hotels? Answer me that. Answer me that.
Do you know who knows when you found out? You do. And if this still doesn't make sense to you, that's because you haven't done it. I can't be more clear. First principle in Scientology, by the way, Ted, you should understand is in studying the subject or practicing it, never, ever, ever believe it just because we say it's so. Only once you have experienced it yourself and you find this concept to be true, should you then consider it to be true.
Could you, just on the most basic level, I mean, you say originally it was done without the e-meter anyway. Could you, on the most basic level, do it with me right now?
No, absolutely not, because we're not in an environment here that is conducive to all the elements of auditing.
Right.
I mean, it would have,
I'm perfectly comfortable here.
Well, here's why. Because you're the interviewer here on the program,
right,
and you're the one who's in charge here on the program, and you're interested in doing a program. That instantly throws out the first three rudiments to doing this. It's not something.
Fair enough.
As a matter of fact,
no, I buy that. That's fair enough. One of the other ways, if you're
I
not
love it when
use
he
the
cuts them
e-meter,
off.
though, Forrest also showed some of the people working with what, plasticine
oh,
clay?
yeah. I mean, there's a sort of misconception that comes out. That's part of the study technology of Scientology. There's a study technology developed by L. Ron Hubbard. He isolated the three barriers to study. This is a technology that helps you study any subject. One of those is not having the mass in front of you. I'll give you an example.
Not having the what?
The mass of an object that you're studying in front of you. A good example, here we are in a studio and we have cameras all over the place. Imagine you were going to school when you were 15 and you're studying up on cameras and you've never seen one, okay? You wouldn't really quite understand it too well. It'd be better if you had the camera there that you could do it with. Taking something more crude than that, where we're not talking about electronics in any given area of study, the ability to demonstrate in clay a concept in the paragraph allows you to gain a greater understanding of that subject. This is something that he asked me about in the intro. There was a piece on it. But generally what people do is they'll be studying materials and then they will see if they really understand it by demonstrating it in this clay. And if they can make a three-dimensional figure of it, it often serves to clarify that concept and also show whether they understand it or not. And it's part of a study program. It's not a process of Scientology. We're not looking to make people better with this. It's strictly a way of studying.
What?
When he's talking about the studying thing, hold on. When he's talking about the studying, but this whole studying concept, and if you've ever watched any of Leah Remini's podcasts or interviews, and I know that they've talked about it, I'm sure in several episodes of the Aftermath. One of the things that they like to do is literally, like, whatever it is you're reading, you have to know the definition of every single word. And if you ask me, that might be the very teeniest, littlest, teeny, little itty bitty little thing that might be good about them. Might, only a little bit. Okay. Because but I mean, you better know the definition of the word a. You better know the definition of the word the. You need to know the definition of the word and. I mean, it gets that mind like into the minutia of every little tiny studying, every tiny little thing. That's why I was saying earlier, he was lying his ass off when he said he never had heard that before. He'd never seen that before. He never did, because they have to study constantly for hours and hours and hours a day. Okay? Hours and hours and hours a day.
Why is it necessary in order to progress? I mean, some of the sums that are charged, and I literally don't have them. It's not something I tucked away in my memory, but we're talking about, in some instances, to move from one level to the next level, $7,000, $10,000, $15,000, huge sums. Why?
Yeah, well, okay, number one, we certainly do have a different donation system than other churches, although not all other churches.
Donation.
Yeah,
you call it a donation.
Oh, absolutely, because there's people that are donating to the church, period.
I understand.
That what he's really meaning, hold up. Sorry. What he really means is that above and beyond the millions of or thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars that you're paying for your courses, you are supposed to and expected to donate above and beyond what your courses cost. That's what he really is saying.
Understand, but are there people there who are making that progress? I mean, what, again, to get back to the person who doesn't have any money, what does he or she do?
He trains in the subject of Scientology. He can then audit somebody else, and he can be audited by that person, and that's free. You see, people like to pull out the sexy part. I'd like to point out, Ted, the people that are complaining about it in your intro, the one girl there that was complaining about it, a girl named Vicky Azaran, which, by the way, this is a girl who was kicked out for trying to bring criminals into the church.
I think
she didn't mention.
I mean, you said a girl. I think we're talking about a grown woman, right?
A grown woman, excuse me.
I mean,
a lady, Vicky Azaran.
And you and she were at one point rivals for the leadership.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I have no idea where Forrest got that from. Absolutely not. She violated the mores and codes of the group. She was removed for it. I was a trustee of that corporation. She knows it. The word she said to me is, I have no future in Scientology. She wanted to bring bad boys into Scientology, her words.
Now, what you have just done is one of two things, and I'm not in a position to judge which it is. Either you have made an accurate charge against someone, or what a number of your critics and a number of the pieces that have been written about the Church of Scientology suggest, is that when you have a critic before you, you destroy those people.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, that's easy to say for the person. That's easy for the person to say, but she's the one on that program smearing me. And let me tell you something else. This subject did come out before. Forrest did have it. I showed her deposition testimony. She admitted in there that that is what she was trying to do. She admitted that's why she was pulled out. The fact that Forrest didn't put that in there is extremely disingenuous. I'm not making any new charge against her. And let's not also forget the fact that she is trying to get $70 million out of the church. And I think that explains 70 million reasons why she would make up something like that. I'm trying to get nothing from her.
Has she sued the church?
Absolutely.
For $70 million?
For $70 million.
Where does that case stand right now?
Case has dragged on for years. It's just been dragging on and on.
But I mean, it's still in the court system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But on the subject here, I mean, they bring that up. Ted, it's simple for people to say that, except I'm not out there leveling charges out of the blue against people. In fact, you've got to look at it this way. You've seen the amount of attacks leveled against my church. I haven't even bothered to come out to defend myself until this point, and I'm not even here to defend myself. But if somebody makes a move like that and they say something and they have an ulterior motive, I think it should be explained. It's that simple. You had another example on there, a Roxanne friend. This is a horrifying story. This girl was ill. I feel for her.
Another woman.
Another woman on there. Excuse me. And I don't mean this in a demeaning way. I'm sorry. She has a horrifying story of having an illness.
What he's talking about, sorry guys, what he's talking about is in the beginning of the video when I didn't share with you guys that we didn't watch. You guys can go back and watch it, but what he's referring to is that there was a woman who was diagnosed with cancer, and they told her, that's okay. We're going to cure you with auditing sessions. You're going to spend extra money and you're going to give us lots of money, can give us more and more money, and we're going to audit the cancer right out of you. Yeah. That's what he's talking. That's what he's referring to right here.
Of cancer. And, and the word in there is that we didn't send her to a church.
To a doctor.
To a doctor, excuse me. In fact, she's been to a doctor 220 times while she was in Scientology. In fact, when we sent her out of the church, we asked her to please go to a medical doctor and see if something was wrong.
The charge, as I recall it, Mr. Miscavige, is that with many of these people...
Let me finish this one because it's important.
Not just with Ms. Friend. I'll let you get back to it in just a second. The charge is that you inevitably, I don't mean you personally, I mean the church, send people who complain of some illness to a doctor, but a doctor who is also a Scientologist.
I know where you got it. It's invented. Never heard it in my life.
So if someone... Well,
first time I heard it.
It's not the first time because you've read the LA Times series and it was in the LA Times.
If it was in the LA Times series, I didn't read that. Believe me, I don't read a report on Scientology from the LA Times to find out what it is. So I did not read that in detail.
No, but I mean, you've got to understand what your critics are saying about you.
That's just not so. Not so at all.
Yeah.
Just absolutely not so.
Any Scientologist who wants to go to an outside doctor, no problem.
Anybody he wants. Mm-hmm. It's just an outrageous charge. I have no idea where it came from.
What do you call the folks who are up at the higher level of your church? The ones in the uniforms? What is
Staff
that?
members, Sea Org members of the church.
Sea Org.
Yes.
What does that stand for?
Sea Organization. Originally.
SEA.
Yes. From the sea.
Sea.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
What is that?
From the ocean. Well, originally this group of people were based on ships at sea, and that's where the term Sea Organization came from.
That was at a time when all kinds of folks were going after L. Ron Hubbard, and he moved his operation out to sea.
Not because all kinds of folks were going after L. Ron.
I mean, IRS was going after him, weren't they, at that time?
Well,
$1 billion tax debt.
You know, I went through these earlier. You want to talk about them? It had there was no cause and effect relationship to L. Ron Hubbard being at sea, and these people going after him, and therefore he was leaving. But you want to bring out all sorts of folks. Ted, let's be accurate here.
Want to get served.
There have been attacks leveled against Scientology. They uniformly get reported by the media. The net result doesn't. Let me just go through them. I mentioned the Food and Drug Administration. They tried this case for 6 years. They lost. It was headline press when it came out. They lost the case. Full religious recognition of the church. They passed their information to Australia. There was a full inquiry down there. In 1982, the court ruled in our favor and issued an apology stating that this was an embarrassing chapter in the history of that country. You talk about the attacks here. The real story is this, Ted. A new organization. There are new ideas in Scientology. These get attacked. It's not the first time in the history of the world that this has happened. This has happened to many other groups. This happened to Christianity. Bring it up forward to another religion, Mormonism. It happened to them. It happened to us. The attacks on us, though, I will say, in the last 40 years are unprecedented and unrelenting, not even rivaled by any other group during that time period. And yet the Church of Scientology has survived throughout that entire time period and grown and continued to grow. That is the real story of Scientology. And the only way that can occur is if you have something beneficial to offer people, and Scientology does. You can talk about all of this. I can debate with you about that. You can go speak to a Scientologist, which were made available to Nightline, and ask them what it has done for them, and they do applaud it. The people who are detractors, anybody has critics. That's fine, and I have to tell you, I don't mind somebody criticizing a valid fact in Scientology, Ted. I'll be the first one to deal with it. People within the church, there's various complaints here and there, little ones. I always investigate them. But what upsets me is when one of these critics brings this up, and your reporter doesn't mention the fact that they are suing, or the fact that they were removed, and I've shown deposition testimony. You see, it's out of the realm of what I'm saying. The fact that another man wanted to kidnap Scientologists, and I showed the documents to your reporter, and he doesn't put them in. My complaint isn't that the people said them. My complaint is that the reporter didn't give the motive, and he should have. He had it available to him, and to not show it makes it seem like these people are objective. You want to go around and check out the controversy. It's created in the media because, Ted, like I said at the beginning of the show, there are 100,000 Scientologists for every one detractor. And when you just show those people, well, they've picked up the lines, they're coordinated, they find all the little buttons to press, and they all say the same ones, they're frightened. They're on the show. I spoke to Roxanne Friend over Christmas. I feel sorry for her, but do you know what she said to me, Ted? She asked me at the end of our conversation, Dave, please tell me, is it ever possible for me to come back to Scientology?
Oh my God, I don't believe that for anything.
That's the real story. That isn't on there.
For every
Liar.
minute that we spent
Tiny itty bitty little liar.
in the report at the beginning, we have spent roughly 5 minutes now with you and me talking. I mean, you are, after all. We've gone almost an hour and a half.
Very well, and I appreciate it. That's right.
Aren't you capable of responding? I mean, you keep saying, why don't you go talk to the Scientologists? You're the head Scientologist.
You have to understand this. If you want to understand what benefits people in Scientology, I can give you my own personal thing. But what I am not going to do here is tell you, I am not going to make claims for other people. What I'm telling you is the best evidence is the successes of Scientology. Do you want to hear about mine?
Sure.
I came to Scientology. I was a young man. I had an acute case of asthma. I had been to doctor after doctor. Nothing could cure it. My father heard of Dianetics and Scientology, took me to an individual. I was with him for an hour. I used exactly what anybody can read in Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health. That asthma disappeared for 3 years. I say 3 years because I'm not going to tell you it went away forever. After that, it came up again, and I dealt with it, and I don't have it now. I do 5 miles a day. I just don't have that. Is that the greatest thing it's done for me? No. But at that point, I certainly knew. I certainly knew it was something beneficial. I knew it. It's a personal story. What it has done for me since then is just fabulous, but that is my own personal story. That is what the story is of Scientology. The successes are endless, Ted. You see, we talk about these, and that's why I was concerned about such an intro piece. Your story, 100,000 people off drugs. That's help. That's good. I can give you these statistics.
You were talking before about Narconon, right? Narconon operated in Oklahoma, correct? State of Oklahoma said illegitimate group tossed you out.
Well, there you go. Now we're going to bring up a new allegation. The state of Oklahoma. No, they didn't. They didn't toss it out. It's still there, and that's in the court system. In fact, what happened, Ted, is that various doctors came in to testify. The leading drug rehabilitation experts in the country came in to testify.
Well, who?
Okay, guys. So what he's talking about here is, if I understand it correctly, that one of the ways that Narconon works, right, is they try to like sweat. You're supposed to take like these extreme amounts of, I'm trying to remember their vitamins, and I want to, whatever they were, I want to say it's niacin is the big key one. And they give them these huge amounts of, they have to do this purification rundown is a part of it, if I'm understanding it correctly. Again, I'm a never in Scientologist, but if I am understanding it correctly, they had that you have to participate in this thing, what they call the purification rundown. You have to take extreme amounts of vitamins, and niacin, I believe, is one of them. And I mean, it's a lot. And then you have to go and sit in a sauna for like 8 hours, like almost an entire day for like days on end. And now a lot of these people that have had to go and do this like purification rundown have problems with their kidneys. They have problems with their livers. They have from taking such high doses of these vitamins. And I don't exactly know how that's supposed to help you get off drugs. I'm not sure how that works. I don't know how that works, but that is exactly what he's talking about, though. That's what he's talking about there. We are running long. It's almost finished. We're almost at the end,
Let me
guys.
finish.
Who was opposing?
Let me finish this.
Who was trying to get it out?
The psychiatrists, the mental health board, the leading doctors across the country, Forrest Tennant, another gentleman whose name doesn't come to mind right now, testified in behalf. All of the testimony on the efficacy of Narconon program was all in favor of it. Studies have been done. Governmental studies in Spain and Sweden found Narconon to be the most effective drug rehabilitation program in those countries. One man came in, a psychiatrist. He made statements about the program. The man was also on record as stating, and this is a man named Dr. Jolyon West out of UCLA. He stated that living a drug-free existence is an antiquated position in today's society. The judge in that case ruled that having that man talk about our drug rehabilitation program is similar to asking Saddam Hussein to report on the treatment of the Kuwaitis in Kuwait.
So why is it still in the court system?
The mental health board is the one who ruled on it, and we couldn't understand the findings because all the testimony was positive. Both health inspections, they passed, and then at the last minute, these mental health people denied it. Hang on. I gave you this story, though. You want to know?
Sure.
Just like the FDA, just like that, we get a level playing field, Ted. It always comes out. You're bringing up Narconon now, but you know, if I
you brought it up, that's why I raised it.
well, I didn't bring up the Oklahoma matter, and you brought that up.
That is correct.
I could have been on here 2 years ago, and you would have brought something up, and it's.
I'm sorry. I have to stop it one more time because did you see Ted's body shift and lean in towards him in that position of power? I love it.
Over now. There have been these cases, but in the end, we come out on top. And I'm telling you, Ted, there are a group of people on this planet who find us to be a threat to their existence, and they will do everything in their power to stop us. And that is the mental health field. I didn't pick a war with them. You can ask them if they feel this way, and they will tell you that.
One last quick area I want to go into. Explain to me what a clear is.
Okay, well, the first book, Dianetics, talks about the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the subject of the mind, well, you have a mind. And I did this with you before, but anybody can see what their mind is. Their mind is composed of pictures. You can close your eyes, look at a cat, and you'll see a cat. And those pictures you're seeing are your mind. There are parts of this mind. You have your analytical mind, which you do your thinking with, which is very analytical. A perfect computer is a good analogy. And there is a reactive mind. And this is the mind that kicks in during any moments of trauma, stress, unconsciousness. It is recording a series of pictures of these incidents, unknown to the individual. At a later time, these incidents that are traumatic can come back and affect the person, affect his rationality, affect his happiness. This is where you find the cause of a person acting a way he doesn't want to. A clear is eradicating that reactive mind so the person no longer has matters like that not affecting him.
Clears don't get colds.
Well, I don't know that clears don't get colds, but
L. Ron Hubbard said clears don't get colds.
Back in 1951, L. Ron Hubbard, I believe, said in that book that postulating that a clear wouldn't get a cold. So again, you're taking the line out of context.
So
Taking it out of context. How dare you, Ted?
clears do get colds.
I guess one could.
Okay. In the few seconds that we got left, we got about 45 seconds left. We've heard a lot from you, and I understand there's a lot more to be said. But why is all of this a religion? And you're speaking now to a great many people out there who have a different concept.
Well, unfortunately, we've talked about a lot of allegations, and it's tough to describe a subject when you're dealing, when you get hit with a litany of accusations at the beginning, you're trying to deal with them. Why Scientology is a religion? Religion is about the spirit, and Scientology deals with the spirit. We are in the tradition of the much older religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, helping the person as a spiritual being improve himself. That is what religion is about. That is why this is a religion. It doesn't fall into any other field.
And on that note, David Miscavige, let me thank you. I appreciate very much your joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is you want to see my rock and roll?
Well. Was that some badassery from Ted Koppel, guys? I mean, he had complete control of that entire interview. And I think David Miscavige thought that he was going to walk in there with all of his dead agent facts, and he was going to throw this and throw this and throw that and throw that and get him off balance and absolutely just rock his boat and keep him completely like boom, 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 boom. Like he's going to get him with this and that and all of their imaginary, everybody's after them, Mr. Paranoia, but Ted didn't do it. Ted didn't do it. Ted didn't allow it. Ted, if you were, I don't know. I learn a lot about like body language and things like that. Right. So one of the things that someone who believes that they are in control of a situation or a conversation, there's a couple of things that they do. They'll hold their hands in like this like triangular position. If it's like this, or if it's like, and they're like, because they're telling you something. And they are the ones that are in solid control, or they will lean in as they tell you something. Did you kind of like pick up on Ted's complete body language? He was all like, I'm nice and relaxed. And yeah, I'm in control, buddy. Little teeny weeny little Davy. Yeah. Thank you guys. I know this has been a long one. We've gone 2 whole hours, and I'm sorry if you got annoyed with me kind of like breaking in with little comments and explanations. Please go check out the first like 15 minutes of that over on Growing Up in Scientology. The link is in the description. It's the very first link that you come to. Go and check it out just so you kind of just see what but you didn't need to see that entire like 15 minutes or, that Forrest Sawyer piece that they showed in the beginning. But definitely go and check it out so you can see exactly what he was kind of like bitching about, but definitely thank you guys for hanging in there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for allowing me to share with you guys some of the information that is, I think, super important for all of us to understand what is going on, to give you guys a little bit of like a backstory. I wanted you to see firsthand what David Miscavige looks like, what his tactics are like. And I just kind of wanted you to see that as we go forward in this channel and on this channel, there are going to be subject matters that are going to be, I think I'm going to actually create like a trigger warning, because we are going to be some time, because I know that some people are very new to this subject matter. So I'm trying to kind of find a happy medium where we can kind of learn, and kind of get some basic foundation understanding of what it is these people are doing. That's illegal, that is unethical, and some of the abuses and the atrocities that are going on back in the day and still going on currently today that need to be stopped. And I just really appreciate you guys letting me and allowing me to go through this journey and of just getting it out there. Because the more education people get, the more we learn, the more we understand, the more we can work to shut this cult down. And thank you guys so much. Please don't go anywhere. You definitely are going to want to see my outro. I think you're going to like it because it's pretty doggone funny. Spread love and kindness. Much love to all of you. See you tomorrow night, 8 o'clock.
Being a Scientologist, when you drive past an accident, it's not like anyone else. As you drive past, you know you have to do something about it because you know you're the only one that can really help.
We were in the middle of our tournament when my friend John said he found a body in the bushes over there. I ran over there because I'm a healing monk to try and help, but obviously my magic wasn't strong enough because the dude's body was missing a head.
He or she has the ability to create new and better realities and improve conditions.
So my friend decided to try and use a necromancer spell, which didn't work, which I knew it wouldn't.
Being a Scientologist, you look at someone and you know absolutely that you can help them.
And apparently we contaminated the crime scene because that spell uses a lot of glitter.
I think it's a privilege to call yourself a Scientologist, and it's something that you have to earn.